So on to another one of our top stories. Students attending New York public schools, the nation's largest school district, will be returning to full in-person learning this fall. Mayor Bill de Blasio made the announcement yesterday.
It's time to do things the way they were meant to be done. All the kids in the classroom together, getting a great education from educators who care, staff members who care.
Madina Touré is here to explain what this all means. She's a reporter for Politico covering New York City education policy and politics. Madina, thanks for joining us. So, I think there are a lot of parents that are going to be breathing a sigh of relief. It was very difficult for many of them to juggle at-home work and at-home learning. But what more do we know about these plans and what still needs to be worked out? Because I know when I heard it, I said, okay, fine. Are they going to be wearing masks? Is there going to be distancing? How are they going to do this?
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, we had some major news here in New York City. The city announced that all students will be returning to school buildings 5 days a week, full time on September 13th. So that's students in all grades, teachers, and staff. And I think the major development is that there won't be a full-time remote option in the fall. So the city is really banking on everyone being in schools. So in terms of masking requirements, students are still going to be required to wear masks. The city has also said that there'll be nurses, classrooms will have working ventilation systems, there'll still be on-site COVID-19 testing. Students, teachers, and staff will continue to screen for symptoms at home. Masks will be required in September. In terms of what needs to be worked out, people still have some concerns about space and whether there will be space to have kids in it, spaced out following the social distancing requirements of 3 feet. The mayor has reassured everyone that will be handled, that people will be able to fit students in the classrooms. There is questions about what will happen to families who may want to be remote. The city's teachers union has been talking about students who have severe medical challenges, what's going to happen there. So the city is kind of working out how it's going to address that.
Yeah, because, vaccinations will be available, or the vaccine's available to kids 12 and over, but that's optional. Parents may not be comfortable with that. Some parents may not be comfortable with that. And obviously the little kids, that's not an option at all. And you're right. What about kids who are immunocompromised? Or what about kids who have parents at home who are particularly vulnerable? They must have questions. Do we know if vaccinations for the children and the staff that can get a vaccination, do we know if that will be a requirement?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the mayor has said that the city is not mandating that, teachers, staff, or students get the vaccine, but they're encouraging people to do it. So in fact, something like half of teachers are vaccinated so far. And as you all know, the 12 to 15-year-olds are able to get vaccinated now. And so I think the city is saying that there have been a lot of youth within that category who have gotten vaccinated. So as of right now, there isn't a vaccination requirement, like you have to get vaccinated to attend schools, but the city seems to be very encouraged by the latest numbers.
There were a lot of experts, doctors, sort of over the past year that wanted to see more children back to in-classroom learning. And they sort of argued that the fallout of not being in class was probably worse than the risk of exposure to the virus, for children anyways, because their risk of exposure is quite low. Can you give us a sense of, what it's been like for New York City students, the impact on their learning this year? I live in Pennsylvania, where they have basically given the option of parents, if they want to hold their kids back 1 year, they can, because that's how concerned they are about whether some kids got any learning at all this year. What's it been like in New York?
Yeah, I think the pandemic definitely had an adverse impact on students' learning, especially low-income students and students of color. Last year, when remote learning rolled out, there were families that didn't have reliable access to technology. There's also students with disabilities, English language learner students. There were definitely students that fell behind because they didn't have the adequate technological support and tools. So it certainly had a diverse impact in that sense, not to mention the trauma that students were dealing with. People lost family members, teachers, principals. There were impacts at all levels. So I think vulnerable students definitely saw the most challenges.
Madina Touré, I'm sure we'll be checking in with you again as this all unfolds, and there'll be school districts around the country watching to see how New York pulls this off. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.